Okay, once more, good morning, everyone. We thank you very much for joining this webinar session, Acronis webinar session. This is supposed to be a webinar session for the end users and also the MSP, right? So the objective of this session is for us to sensitize ourselves as regards the EDR, that is disaster recovery, Acronis disaster recovery, the methodology, and the rest of it. So the title before is delivering effective backup and disaster recovery service with Acronis solution. And in order to deliver this webinar, I have my colleague Taiwo Dada Uyo. She's the senior sales manager with Tranta IT. And also Irene will be coming in later to handle the technical presentation, that is demo presentation on disaster recovery. And also my humble self is Henry Agbonze. I'm the channel manager for Acronis solution. Okay, so before we proceed, I will just give a little background on what the relationship between Acronis and Tranta IT is. Like you all know, Tranta IT is an IT infrastructure company. Basically, we focus on IT solutions and also support solutions for our clients. And we are the distributor to Acronis solution in Nigeria, right? We sell Acronis through our MSP. Right, and also we, apart from being the Acronis distributor, we have other services that we offer as in Tranta IT as a whole. So we also have 60+ partners where we sell other solutions. But currently we are the distributor to Acronis, and we are selling through our MSP, who are actually in this webinar session. So I want to take us through the agenda for this webinar. So we're going to have basically we're going to focus on disaster recovery, and so we need to understand the nitty-gritty as regards disaster recovery, the important tools in disaster recovery, and it's important in an enterprise company. What are the methodologies of Acronis disaster recovery? The benefit of Acronis disaster recovery, use cases of Acronis disaster recovery solution. So these are the things we want to intimate with ourselves in this webinar. So in the course of this webinar, Tai will be handling this webinar as regards anything that has to do with the disaster recovery, the methodology, the benefit of Acronis disaster recovery. Tai will be the one to be handling this session. But meanwhile, before then, I will let you understand. I will want to intimate you just to use the chat box. So while she's presenting, you can use the chat box to send your questions and your comments. So immediately after the first session, which is disaster recovery and the sales presentation, we're going to take some of the questions and ensure that those questions are answered before we proceed to the next session, which is the technical demo. You know how to waste our time, so I'm going to introduce Taiwo Dada. She's going to start with a presentation on disaster recovery. Taiwo, over to you.
Thank you, Henry. It's a pleasure being here today, and I just want to welcome all attendees for the Acronis Cyber Protect webinar today. We will be talking about Acronis, the importance of Acronis to enterprise organizations this morning. Okay, so why Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud? Why is it important to small, medium businesses and enterprise? In recent times, we noticed that the world is actually facing a new world of threats. Some are natural threats, like the natural disasters and the pandemic, as well as some are human threats. The natural threats, I mean, we recently experienced a pandemic which affected the whole nations. I mean, the whole world was affected by these pandemics. And then also natural disasters, we see flooding here and there, we see fire outbreaks here and there. And all this affects the facilities and infrastructures of a lot of organizations. With the pandemic, this affects people, movement, health, and all that. And then if we now look into the human aspect of it, which is like hardware failure, software corruption, I mean, up to 30 million SMBs are vulnerable to this IT failure, even without, especially those without comprehensive monitoring. We also have human errors like accidental data deletion. A lot of organizations actually suffer from this human error, which is caused by employees. And we also know that cyber attacks is actually on the rise. About 93% of businesses were attacked within the past 3 years. A lot of these organizations may not actually let you know what happened, but we do know quite a lot of organizations were attacked in the last 3 years, and a lot of them are actually looking inwards to say, okay, how can we actually mitigate against these cyber attacks, these malware attacks? And a lot of investment is actually going on in a lot of organizations in terms of cybersecurity as we speak. Okay, so moving on, all the cyber attacks and all those human and natural disasters causes quite a lot of business disruption. I mean, Gartner and IDC institutes, they've done some research, and they observed that about 25% of data breaches in 2019 were actually caused by the human error, which is accidentally deleting or overwriting of files and folders by employees. They also noticed that 51% of these data breaches were also caused by criminal and malicious attacks. And we all know what this means: total business disruption. 70% of organizations are also likely to suffer this business disruption. By 2022, even moving on to 2023 as we speak. So there's been a lot of attacks on businesses here and there, and a lot of organizations are looking inwards into how can they mitigate against these business disruptions and ensure that this doesn't happen, because really they can't really afford the downtime. Most organizations run at losses, especially when they have downtimes. And at the end of the day, productivity is affected. The staff lose their productivity, their man hours are lost. Sometimes they lose up to $9,000 averagely, an hour for these unplanned downtimes from SMBs and enterprises. So Acronis is looking at how can we mitigate against this downtime? How can we mitigate against these losses and here and there? And we're looking at, a lot of organizations are looking at backup. Yeah, backup is good, but backup is not disaster recovery. Everybody has a form of backup in one way or the other, where you back up your data in your, maybe your own internal file server, file systems, or some backup in tapes, some backup in flash drives, some backup in some remote sites. But backing up the data does not mean you have actually achieved disaster recovery. When you back up your data, and this data is also backed up in a cloud infrastructure, that means you have a disaster recovery in place. That means you have a continuous process. If a disaster happens, you have an alternative where you can continue your business. We call that business continuity. That is what disaster recovery is about. The backup as well as business continuity plan in a cloud infrastructure or even an on-site infrastructure. So going forward, let's look at what is the difference between backup and disaster recovery. We notice the key functionality between backup and disaster recovery is that backup is protection of data from loss. However, disaster recovery means high availability of physical applications, rapid recovery after this, and rapid recovery after the disaster has occurred. What are the target devices in backup? Majorly, we back up our servers, we back up our workstations and mobile devices. While in terms of disaster recovery, our target devices are physical or virtual servers. What are the recovery requirements in terms of a backup? That's, you want to achieve data loss at a minimum data loss as much as possible. And then you also want the ability to restore and access those single items as fast as possible. But when you're looking at a disaster recovery, you're looking at recovery requirements of failover of critical workloads quickly as possible to an offsite location, which is also, the data will be malware free, and then they fail back to a primary site, so that whatever happens, if the local data on your on-premise fails or is corrupted, or there's a disaster, there's a flood, there's a fire, it's easy for you to quickly fail over to another site, off-site or on the cloud, where you can have instant access to your data. That is what disaster recovery is all about. What are the required infrastructure for disaster, for a backup? All we need is just a local and off-site backup tier storage infrastructure. But when we come to disaster recovery, we're looking at high performance off-site storage, compute and networking resources, as well as disaster recovery orchestration software. And then looking into the storage type, we have the cold storage, which is just the physical data staying there. While we're looking at, for disaster recovery, we're looking at the warm and hot storage. So it actually takes a couple of days to recover a backup, from hours to days. While for disaster recovery, it is instantaneous. Within minutes, you can recover from a disaster. And then the usage frequency, disaster recovery is always available in critical times. Well, while backup is often, sometimes people schedule backups for once in a week, once in a month, or thereabout, depending on the type of data that you're trying to store. So as we see here, backup is not disaster recovery, but for a good disaster recovery to happen, you must have a very good backup. Yeah, so disaster recovery has evolved over the years from just ordinary, company data or co-location key, where you have your depreciated hardware, networking, licensing, replication on platforms, and massive amounts of storage devices. We now have the hybrid approach, which is actually sometimes costly, complicated, and limited to an extent. But in modern time, in these recent times, we have modern hybrid and cloud-based disaster recovery, which is very cost-effective, easy to use, and actually readily available. We'll be talking about that as we proceed. So who actually needs a disaster recovery? We realize that companies that rely on mission-critical applications and data really need to have a disaster recovery plan in process. Companies that are also subject to regulated compliance requirements need a disaster recovery plan. Companies that are also partners in stringent supply chains really need the supply plans. And also, if you lack technical resources and you have heavy reliance on IT for your business functions, disaster recovery is the way forward. We can achieve this in various key industries and verticals, whether you're in financial services, whether you're in the healthcare, in the legal, in the transportation, vertical, the business services, manufacturing and construction. Everyone needs a disaster recovery plan. everyone needs to have a disaster recovery and a continuity plan in process. Yeah, like I said earlier, regulatory requirements and controls for backup and disaster recovery, these are very important. There are some organizations that would ensure that your data is resident only where you are, and you cannot only onshore, you cannot move your data offshore. Acronis data recovery satisfies all those requirements. However, they may be, all the requirements are being certified, whether it's be HIPAA, or whether it's a PCI Security Standards Council, or the Sarbanes-Oxley regulations. And the Acronis Cyber Protect satisfies all this for backup and disaster recovery. Okay, so we're going to go into the glance of the advanced disaster recovery, Acronis advanced disaster recovery. How does it really work? What does it really entail here? So Acronis cyber disaster recovery and backup solution actually has deep integration, which enables new capabilities. I mean, it's like an all-in-one solution. You can integrate at all levels, management, production, technology, anyhow. You have one solution for everything, one agent, one policy, one UX, UI, one license, and one vendor. It eliminates all sorts of complexity that you would experience with other type of backup solution. It delivers new security capabilities and keeps your costs down. Manage all clients from one console and effectively support escalations just with one vendor. As you can see on my right-hand side here, you can see the details of what it looks like, as in this is what it looks like. You have one protection plan, you have your backup, you have your disaster recovery, you have your anti-malware, anti-spamware, you also have URL filtering, as well as vulnerability assessments. That is a very important tool. Patch management as well, because a lot of organizations notice vulnerabilities, especially from their endpoints. So we have the opportunity to do patch management and protect your data, whether they are hot or warm data or cold data, you can protect them all. Yes, so we have Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud. This is actually the best in-breed backup with integrated security management. It protects every workload. It strengthens all your AVI against zero-day threats, accelerates security and manageability. We're looking at security as part of, so this is a part of the core of the Acronis Cyber Protect solutions in terms of security, in terms of management, in terms of backup, disaster recovery, including file sync and share. It protects every workload you have, no matter where it is located. It protects it all. And then if we're looking at the advanced pack, we have the advanced security, we have the advanced backup, we have the advanced disaster recovery, we have the advanced email security, advanced data loss prevention, advanced management, advanced file sync and share. And all this all sits on the core of the Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud solution. It is optimized for every workload, and there is also consolidates a lot of vendors. A lot of people use different vendors for different things. Maybe they use a different vendor for email security. They use a different vendor for management. We use a different vendor for backup or disaster recovery. Some people use different vendors for anti-malware and anti-spamware. But with Acronis, you have one in all solution. We're going to be looking at the disaster recovery bits of it as we're speaking. So disaster recovery is for all your workloads, no matter what it is, whether it's a physical server or is a virtual machine, whether you're running on Windows or Linux. You can also have the same on virtualization platform where you have your VMware Microsoft, your Linux, your Red Hat, and Citrix. You can also have your cloud servers for real-time applications, which are built on for your applications like SQL, MySQL. So you can see we have a all varied workloads, from the Windows server to your Exchange server to your SQL to SharePoint to Active Directory, your Hyper-V, Citrix, Linux, VMware, Red Hat. Anyhow, all the flavors of Linux, Acronis Cyber Protect disaster recovery solution is able to protect your data no matter the type of workload. So this is a high-level architecture of the Acronis disaster recovery solution. You have your Acronis data center with the backup and disaster recovery web console. The administrator can log in directly to it. You also have your management console on the side, as well as your backup and disaster recovery servers. Moving on to the cloud recovery side, we have our hot and cold storage, and then you have your on-demand compute on the cloud. You also have a virtual router that helps you to route all the data. So all these is available as disaster recovery as a service. This is the components of an out-of-the-box solution. It's very easy and quick to deploy, and you can deploy it at various stages. So we have our client environments, whatever the environment may be, whether they are agents for Hyper-V, or they are agents for VMware, or agents for Windows or for Linux. All the key disaster recovery operations are done from just one single console. You don't need to move from one window to the other, or to change, from one client to the other. Everything is done from one single console. So what are the features of the advanced disaster recovery and the benefits? Number one, when it improves your RTOs, which is your recovery time objective, and also automate disaster recovery with the runbooks. The runbooks feature actually simplifies the speed of failover of multiple machines to cloud and recovery. It allows for efficient and of operations to automate failovers and testing, and ensure that the systems are recovered in the right order to address interdependencies between applications on different machines. So that is one major advantage of the runbook, especially when you're doing your recovery. It allows you to be able to synchronize all those recovery points and where they ought to be, and so that your data is recovered as it is when it was lost. So also, still on improving the recovery time objective and automating recovery with runbooks is easy to design. Using the intuitive drag and drop editor, it's just a drag and drop. Just drag it and drop it, and then your RTOs, your runbook is populated. Also, you can test to verify the integrity of this data that have been recovered by executing the runbook in the test mode on the web console. Once you've done the design and everything is in the right order, you test it, and then you execute the runbook within a few clicks. When the real disaster strikes, the minimum RTO with fast failback for multiple servers. I mean, the time is just within minutes, you have recovered back. And then after execution, you monitor. Gain disaster recovery orchestration visibility with the detailed runbook execution real-time view. So you can actually see the execution history. Once you've populated the runbook, you've tested it, executed it, you can now begin to monitor your recovery and ensure that everything is in the right place and at the right time you're getting it. Okay, also we have automated failback for virtual machines. So it streamlines your effort by managing the whole process in one panel, like I said earlier. Then there's so much benefit from one of the lowest switchover downtimes on the market. It also eliminates confusion with easy user instructions on the interface. The user interface is very easy to work with. There's no complication about it. As it shows here on the screen on my right-hand side, is the same way it is. So your servers are up. It's a quick drag and drop. Your recovery is in process, and everything just happens within minutes to hours. Your recovery is back up. So this helps to achieve a near zero downtime and ensure that your business ensures your business continuity, and it also safeguards your client's data as well. So it is also automated for test failover. So you save time and effort with simplified and automated failover testing. With the Acronis Advanced Disaster Recovery Pack, you can perform scheduled automated tests for any server in any how you want to, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly. You can even decide to do them hourly. So it gives you the confidence that you can actually recover quickly and successfully at any point in time. It is also AI powered. So the AI powered screenshot verification is used to verify that the workloads are up and running in the cloud. And also a consolidated report is created after each testing session with the details of testing for every workload. So you can see as you're progressing step by step with the recovery of your data, you can actually check you can verify that the workloads are up and running. And you can also verify that the integrity of the workload is secured because you have access to see all those within the testing session, even before the failover is fully completed. Okay, so we're also looking at the IP security multi-sites and the VPN support. So some organizations use that VPN and tunnels for their disaster recovery for security. So this strengthens the security for your clients. It also integrates secure protocols and algorithms so that you can easily support clients with multiple sites that are hosting critical workloads with higher requirements for security compliance and bandwidth. It also has a transparent connection and tunnel status and self-troubleshooting. As you can see here on the right-hand side, so it is a very seamless solution and there's no complexity. That's why I like Acronis. There's no complexity about it. Just one touch of a button and you are able to see where your local site is, where your VPL tunnel is, and your cloud site, and you're able to do your configuration without any stress. So it is easy to use, and you're able to support multiple sites that are even hosting critical workloads. Okay, so moving on. Yeah, we have a custom DNS configuration as well, where we have flexibility of setting your custom DNS configuration. This easily adjust your DNS settings from your cloud servers, those that are dependent and those that are dependent on your own DNS services. So you also set up your custom DNS settings for disaster recovery cloud servers for the whole of the disaster recovery infrastructure in the Acronis cloud. As you can see on my right-hand side here, you can see the connectivity, the local sites, the VP tunnel, and the cloud sites, and the DNS servers. You can see the configuration is very easy for you to do your configuration.
All right. Thank you very much for that. I just want to cut you a while. I want to encourage us to use the chat box, right? So use the chat box because immediately after this session, we're going to dive down to the Q&A session. So I would want to have your questions, your any kind of query you have. So you can use the chat box. Just type in your questions. We'll be glad to treat all the requests that comes in. Thank you. Sorry for that interruption. You can go ahead, please.
Thank you, Henry. Yes, so continuing on our disaster recovery exploits. So we also have the VPN less deployment option, which allows you to onboard your clients more quickly and easily. A VPN virtual appliance is not actually necessary for point-to-site connectivity. You can switch from the point-to-site mode if you wish. And this option is easily useful for customers who want to quickly evaluate the services, or they don't need to extend the local network to the cloud. So you can use your site-to-site mode, and you can see the option there on the right-hand side. You can choose to configure site-to-site, or you can choose to configure points to points, which points to sites, whichever one suits you. So yeah, so it connects quickly and easily with point to site, or whatever your preference is, you are able to connect easily, even without having to use your VPN option. Okay, so you also have multiple network support, which supports more complex customer infrastructures. This extends up to 5 local networks to the Acronis cloud recovery sites through the single site-to-site connection. We can also have the failover complex environment where protected servers are distributed across several network segments. Also, we see connectivity status of all 5 networks, all in one view. So you can see on my right-hand side, you can see disaster recovery. You can see the site-to-site open VPN. I can see the multi-site IPsec VPN, as well as the cloud-only VPN. So whatever the type of connectivity you have, you can extend up to 5 local networks. It is able to accommodate it. It's flexible. Yeah, so disaster recovery for DHCP servers, you unlock more failover scenarios for licensed applications by running your own DHCP service on the recovery server during failover or testover. You can actually gain more control over your network configurations and IP address leasing. Also, clients can run this application where the license is bounded to a MAC address. You can see here your DHCP is bounded to that particular MAC address. So you can run your failover scenarios from any application, and you can be bounded to any MAC address or IP address. So you gain broader failover control and more failover scenarios with this using DHCP. Our encrypted backup complies with data security. So it performs failover using critical encrypted backups and allows the systems to use the securely stored password for automated disaster recovery operations. So the new credential store feature accessibility from this web console, as we see here, allows you to securely store and manage passwords for encrypted server backups. And also this complies with various data regulations. So encrypted backup supports, it gives you opportunity to encrypt your backups. You can't even say that, oh, I'm afraid maybe my data will be lost. Maybe my data, someone is going to have access to my data. You actually have the accessibility of the console to encrypt your data. And once you encrypt your data, only you and you only knows the password. Acronis will not know the password. So it's always good when you decide to, after your backup is being done and you want to do your disaster recovery, ensure you secure your password and keep it safe, and let it be something that you can remember. Because once you encrypt your data, you you only have access to the password and only you can decrypt it with that password. Acronis will not be able to decrypt that password for you. And I think this is a very good security requirement. It gives the client a peace of mind that nobody else has access to those data that they've encrypted. And it guarantees the security as well and the integrity of the data. Okay, so moving on to the recovery server, recovery points objective compliance tracking. So you can see that there's an improvement in SLA compliance where you define recovery point thresholds for the recovery servers to identify how fresh the cloud backup of the original machine so that to perform the failover should be. You can also track the recovery point objective compliance in real time via the web console. As you can see on the right hand side, you can see the various servers and then you can see their status, whether they are compliant or not compliant, whether they've exceeded their recovery point objective or whether they are okay, whether they are ready or whether they failed. So you can see all those compliance status within a glance. So you can actually look at the SLAs and ensure you are able to meet up with those SLA tracking. Okay, so moving on to the malware recovery points. So this is as in avoiding reinforcement by being proactive. You can actually fail over to a particular point where your data was malware free. The checklists of the recovery points are available for the failovers to see. If a malware or other indicators of those of compromise was discovered during that backup scanning process, you can fail over to that point in time where it was malware free. This ensures a faster, a safer return to productivity, and also by preventing reinfection via a compromised recovery point. So at every point in time, your data integrity is secured. You can perform anti-malware scanning of your backups and using the advanced security solution. This ensures that you have successfully you have a successful recovery by selecting the malware-free recovery points. You can see on the right-hand side here, infected file was detected. We had 2 vulnerabilities as well. So you can decide not to restore to this particular recovery point. You can decide to recover to another recovery point where it was malware-free, where it was infection-free. And this ensures the integrity of your data and the viability of your data. So you can start and test the failover process. You can see a button there which allows you to be able to test the failover and try it. So that is one very good advantage of that recovery point failover test. Okay, so we're going to be moving on. A lot of people would be talking about disaster recovery. Is it just only on the cloud? What else do we have about disaster recovery? I'm concerned about where my data is. So we can also have the hybrid disaster recovery as well. And then we're saying, why do you need hybrid disaster recovery? Sometimes you want to tune your disaster recovery hardware to a specific client's need. Maybe your organization has some specific requirements. So definitely the hybrid version of disaster recovery can enable you to have that. You might also want to have more control over your disaster recovery scenarios and offerings. So you have that capability. Your clients may also have stringent data localization requirements in terms of your GDPR, data sovereignty, industry-specific regulations, consumer data laws, and etc. So you can actually have a hybrid disaster recovery site to be able to help you to achieve those localized requirements. Clients may also require or dictate faster full recovery time on their SLA for their recovery time objective and their recovery points objective. So we might need to reduce or eliminate cloud-based latency factor. So with the hybrid solution, client is able to achieve that. You also want to, you might also want to increase margins, that is for MSPs. And you also might need to implement cost control strategies for storage and compute intensive applications. The hybrid solution allows you for that. So no matter where or whatever the scenario is, where your data location matters, you can have it on premise and you can have it also on the cloud. So that's the advantage of the hybrid scenario. So, okay, moving on to the hybrid disaster recovery for the Acronis Protect Cloud. So like I said earlier, you can use the combination of Acronis Cloud and your own data center. Your infrastructure can be tuned to meet those specific requirements that you need. Whichever deployment option you decide to choose, whether you want to use your local or your cloud repository, clients will benefit from any location. Clients will benefit from the excellent performance and then enhanced security, which comes with cost optimization. And this might not be available, in order from other vendors. So as you can see here, we have the Acronis Cloud, we have your clients, and you also have your partner data center or your own local data center, your storage cluster, and your compute cluster. So whichever way it is, your hybrid disaster recovery is available for you to use, local or on the cloud, on-premise or on cloud. So why is disaster recovery the best solution for our enterprise? What are actually the benefits? So like I said earlier, backup is not disaster recovery. So while backup delivers you a steady approach to recover, disaster recovery ensures your business continuity. It ensures that your business can keep running in a crisis, even within the crisis. That is disaster recovery. It's a specialized solution. It focuses on the recovery speed in order to maintain your business continuity. So what are the top benefits? Number one, minimizes impact of any disaster. Number two, ensures continuous employee productivity. There's a flooding, my laptop shut down, the network is down. You just switch over, you just fail over to the next server, which is on the cloud. And then that ensures your business continuity. And also it's actually far more cost effective for you to have a disaster recovery plan than, it's so easier for you, so much easier for you to be able to spin up a new server on the cloud and recover your data than for you to have to go and buy a new hardware, have to do the installation of the OS before you now look at where the data is and then you now, replicate the data on the new hardware. That could take you some days. But when you have a disaster recovery plan in place with the Acronis disaster recovery, you just switch over to the cloud, just connect to the cloud, and then you're back up instantly, instant access to all your data without any form of losses whatsoever. This also meets with the compliance regulatory requirements from customers, whether it be financial, legal, health, no matter what the compliance within your industry is, it meets up with it. It also reduces the downtime of operations. So there's a disaster, there is a human error, there's something happened. It is no excuse for productivity. You can just switch over and your operation continues as it is. It also reduces your potential financial losses. A couple of banks, we saw what happened during the pandemic and all that. Some banks actually they lost a lot of time because they couldn't fail over to their operations because some of their network resources were overburdened and they did not have a disaster recovery plan. So they couldn't switch over or fail over to expand their resources, and they had experienced so much downtime and actually lost a lot of financial resources there as well. So, but with the backup recovery and disaster recovery solution, it's easy. I mean, there's little or no losses financially and downtime of your operations. It also reduces the liability on obligations as well, and minimizes the risk of negative exposure, and also it facilitates your crisis management protocol. So these are the various benefits of Acronis advanced disaster recovery. So why Acronis advanced disaster recovery? Again, like I said, your disaster recovery is a minute. It is affordable pricing with little or no capital investment needed. It is so easy also for you to fully automate your disaster recovery site configuration. As in, it's like a drop, you just pick and drop, and it is automated. There's also near zero downtime during your failback. I mean, you wouldn't even notice there's a switch between the live environment and the failover environment. There's also opportunity to test your key disaster recovery scenario in an isolated test environment. Some people might want to say, okay, let's even assume a disaster occurs. How do I test it? There's opportunity for you to do your testing, test those scenarios and see that, okay, when this disaster happens, how do we actually react to it? And what is our RTO and RPO? So it's so easy to be able to achieve. And then disaster recovery orchestration is excellent. Just fail over immediately, you're back and up and running. That is the advantages we have for our disaster recovery, advanced disaster recovery. Okay, so moving on. So what is your complete cyber protection services? All managed from your single user interface. We have data protection. So Acronis Cyber Protect offers you one single data protection plus cybersecurity plus disaster recovery. In terms of your data protection, you can back up and restore your data. The primary focus actually is to prevent the loss of your valuable data, as well as your data location, whether they're on servers, they're on workstation, or they're on mobile devices. You have your backup and restore, and you have your data protected, fully protected. Then when we're looking at the cybersecurity aspects of it, we have the endpoint management and security, which focuses on detection and deflection of malware attacks, which also have vulnerability assessment and configuration management, as well as URL filtering and patch management. And then with this cybersecurity, we're now combining with our suite of disaster recovery, which focuses on high availability of your critical application and gives you rapid recovery to avoid any costly downtime, and as well as the infected recovery points are easily highlighted. So you can recover to any point in time that infection did not occur. So this is your complete cyber protection service, all managed from one single user interface. So if we look at the ransomware part of it, ransomware puts down workloads and causes a lot of downtime. Disaster recovery is a secret weapon for cybersecurity. So it can buy you a lot of time to stop the damage while you keep your clients and your critical workload operational. Ransomware can cause workloads to be encrypted. It can also affect your OS. It also can affect restoring from cloud, which can take days or ages. But with the cyber, there's no business that is too small for cyber attack. We have quite a lot of organizations they may knowing or they may not even know, but they have a lot of malware samples being found every day. And the question is, will your clients be targeted? Will you as an end user, will you be targeted? But when you use the Acronis Cyber Protect disaster recovery options, it takes away all those stress. It protects your endpoint. It protects against anti-malware attacks or anti-ransomware attacks. And then it also helps you to back up your data and restore your data. So with the disaster recovery, your company will be fully operational within hours, just a few hours of operation or of the incident occurring. Your data is up and running, and there is no time lost at all. Okay, so we're looking at some use cases here. There's an example of a cyber attack on a branch, a medical, a clinic. Like we said earlier, you can use this for different verticals, whether manufacturing, healthcare, and all that. So this use case is like an hospital that had 3 branches, and they have up to 300 patients in a day, and about 60 devices used by doctors and staff. And they have a data center of over 700 gigabytes and 6 terabytes of file servers of historical data, running 2 terabytes of Microsoft SQL. So they have a huge IT infrastructure, but then the disaster happened. The doctors were not able to finish their current session, and so they lost access to the records. Customers were not able to make their online or offline appointments, and the doctors were forced to start using temporary means to store information about their patients' visits. But the clinic was not even able to share examination results to all the patients who needed their results. And you can imagine only general practitioners were able to provide medical services. All the other specialists who were all on appointments were not able to see their appointment because they were all on the portal, and the portal was already shut down. So the clinic also switched to cash only because they could not see their price list, and their accounting system was down. So you can actually imagine this scenario whereby there was an attack on this hospital that had 3 branches. Everything just went down. And before you knew it, they switched on to their Acronis disaster recovery. If they were actually supposed to do this recovery on their own, it could actually take them up to 3 days to recover. But by the time they switched over to Acronis disaster recovery solution, it just took them less than 2 hours, and the operations of the clinic was fully restored. They just switched over, they failed over to the cloud hosted servers, and they were back online within less than 2 hours. They were back online. So this is a part of the benefit and use cases we can see of Acronis disaster recovery solution. It is a real viable solution to use. If we can also see the database was disrupted for a retailer, that's another use case. And this retailer had like 3 showrooms, and they had a lot of orders, processing over 150 orders per day. And they had a couple of computers connected to their ERP solution. And then they had like 120 gigabytes of data in their order management system. They had up to 2 terabytes of data running on SQL and other web services, and something happened. The network went out, and the online store was no longer functional. Users were not able to see their products, and they were not able to place their orders. And you can imagine if these orders were critical to life or critical to health, they were not able to create it. There was a disaster impact on there was a malware on the ERP solution. So before you know it, only 60% of the already placed orders were able to be fulfilled. And then before you know it, next business day delivery was not able, they were not able to process their business and neither were they able to process any of their orders, and they lost a lot of revenue. You can imagine $305,000 per day lost revenue. In order for them to recover back, and they have to do it the manual way, it could take them a minimum, just a minimum of 2 days, because they have quite a lot of data to restore from their backup. But by the time they use the Acronis recovery, disaster recovery solution, they just pinned up the cloud solution, logged into the cloud, and all the workstations connected directly to the cloud. Within 1.5 hours, everybody was back online. They just failed over to the network online, and everybody was back and running, up and running. So these are the advantages of the hybrid cloud. Yeah, you can have it hybrid, you can have it cloud disaster recovery solution. It's actually it saves a lot of time, it saves a lot of money, and it saves a lot of wasted efforts. Acronis Cyber Protect solution, it is the way. Acronis actually is a leader in cyber protection. They are #1 AI-powered cyber protection, cyber cloud, and cyber platform. It's actually a Swiss country. The headquarters is in Switzerland. It was founded in 2003. That's just the brief history of Acronis and how far they have come. Acronis is used all over the world. It has global presence, it has local presence all over the world. The key of Acronis mission is to protect all data, application, and system workload using the SAPA acronym, which we call the safety, accessibility, privacy, authenticity, and security. So with this, we've come to the end of this presentation. I know quite a couple of people have asked 1 or 2 questions, and so I will be opening now for our question and answer session. I hope we all enjoyed the brief presentation on the Acronis cyber security and disaster recovery solution. Thank you all. Questions now?
All right, thank you very much, Taiwo. That's very insightful. Really want to appreciate you for that presentation. I now see the need for Acronis disaster recovery to ensure that we have business continuity. So I've seen a couple of questions in here, so we're going to treat them one after the other, just for us to be standing by. Also, we have Irene Odeli. She's going to be the one to handle the technical session, which will commence shortly. So let's dive down to the questions we have here. So I will go with the first question here. I have Shukuma David asking, how vast is Acronis DR to protect servers and applications? What of IBM AIX? So Acronis, we have Odili here, Irene, she'll be assisting to with some of these questions that have been asked, and also Taiwo, with the questions that have been asked here too. How vast is Acronis DR to protect servers and application? What of?
Okay, just to quickly jump in. Currently, right now, we support only Windows servers on the Cloud DR platform. So I think you mentioned something about IBM. We currently do not support IBM.
Oh, great. Okay, that's noted. Okay, so the next question here is that what is the actual process it takes to protect physical server from a failover or DR?
I don't understand that question. Please come again.
So what is the actual process it takes to protect physical servers, physical system for failover or DR? So I think is actually the process it will take to
okay, we'll run through that during the technical demonstration.
So how does it protect data corruption from system and user error?
Okay, so from a disaster recovery perspective, you can't really protect data corruption, right? Or let me put it this way. The only thing you're able to do is ensure that even if you have corrupt data, say for example, one of the examples that I listed in our presentation was a ransomware. So you have a ransomware attack, and then your files are encrypted, right? You can be relaxed knowing the fact that even though the files in your primary production server are encrypted, you have a backup somewhere that is clean, uninfected, that is not infected, that you can always fall back to, right? So what disaster recovery does is just to ensure business continuity, to ensure that even if you have an issue, even if you have an incident, whatever the disaster is, whatever the incident is, it could be anything. It could be human error, it could be corruption of files, to say, for example, a malware, a ransomware attack. It could be natural disaster, it could be anything, right? You can rest assured that, yes, I have backup, right? And I can always continue my business. All I have to do is just make that backup my primary server or my primary resource location while I try to resolve whatever it is that happened to the original server.
Yeah, Irene, thanks. Remember, during the presentation, I also mentioned there was the opportunity to recover to a point, your recovery point objective, to a point whereby the file was not corrupted. So peradventure the data was corrupted, you can actually recover to a point in time when it wasn't corrupted, and then you can have your clean file.
Interesting. Oh, and so let's dive down to the next question. So for the clients that do not want cloud DR failover, how does it support on-prem disaster recovery?
I think that's what Taiwo explained when she talked about the hybrid, right? Okay. For on-prem, there are actually some limitations, but you can actually do hybrid also, where the servers are local, the backup, the computer, and all the rest is local to the customer's environment. But at the end of the day, usually we usually recommend hybrid to be done by the service provider and not the end user, because the idea behind disaster recovery is to ensure that there's business continuity. So if you, as the end user, you're housing your disaster recovery in the same location as your primary server, right? What is the guarantee that whatever happened to your primary server cannot happen to your backup, right? So what is to say, for example, there was flooding or there was an earthquake or something, both resources, both your primary and your backup are in the same location. So it actually negates the idea of having a disaster recovery solution. So if you're not doing a cloud DR, the next option with regards to hybrid would typically sit with the service provider at this situation.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We have a question from Luca. It seems this is not, well, let me just put it the way it is. How can I recover physical infrastructure when there's a disaster like fire or flood? So I don't think you have to equalize. Okay, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Okay, so how can you recover it when there's a disaster, when there's an incident? So what happens is, right before the fire happened, right, we take your backup and all, and we keep it in our cloud environment. So in the cloud, what we are doing is that we're providing a virtual machine for you in the cloud, right, where your resources would then be housed. Right. So if there's a fire and all, it's not a problem. The good thing is you just fail over to that server in the cloud, right, and continue your work. At the time when you're now able to do to get a new server, go to the, so for example, Computer Village, buy a new server, and then you want to do a restoration. It's just very simple. We have your data in the cloud. We have your backup sitting in the cloud. You just restore that data or that backup file back to the server that you have locally. I'm guessing that's what he means by that question.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, that is noted. Okay, so Chukuma is in that he actually requested for a more technical demo section. We will work on that to ensure that is.
Yeah.
So how much? Okay, we'll talk about the pricing when you reach out to us. You can reach out to their MSP too. They will share the pricing as regards the on-prem. That's the question from Edson, requesting for the cost of the on-prem options. So we have our MSP, they are here, they are signed and registered through Acronis. They can actually reach out to you. You can reach out to them, or you can reach out to us. Then we direct them to you, so they can share the pricing to you. So from Victor Asani, will this solution remediate whenever there is an attack in order to prevent further occurrence and downtime?
Okay, so I think the best way to explain that is this. Disaster recovery solution in itself is not a security solution. It's a disaster recovery solution, right? It just ensures business continuity. It takes backup and provides infrastructure for you if you have any attack. Now, Acronis actually has a cybersecurity solution, a security solution that actually helps to remediate, right, and helps to, prevent further occurrence, right? So there's also that one. We have the anti-malware, our security solution that has anti-malware, anti-ransomware, antivirus capability, machine learning, and behavioral heuristics, embedded into it to help prevent attacks and all the rest. But disaster recovery just mostly focuses on ensuring that when there's an attack, if anything happens, disaster recovery doesn't only deal with just cyber attacks. It also takes care of different incidents, like we mentioned, human error, natural disaster, and the likes, right? So if any of this happens to your primary infrastructure, you can sleep well knowing that you have a backup somewhere.
Thanks, Irene. Okay, there's another question here. Is it possible to back up mails on webmail and Outlook configurations?
Okay, yes. So what happens? I'm going to answer that question in two ways. So firstly, we have a solution that backs up Office 365 applications. So we're talking about what's it called? Outlook, email. Well, email is Outlook really. Not webmail, just Office 365. So Outlook, Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive, right? So all of Office 365 applications, we're able to back it up for you. Now, with regards to disaster recovery, what happens is that when we're taking backup in a disaster recovery scenario, we are backing up the entire machine. So we are backing up the entire system, right? All the applications and all the resources that are embedded on that server, right? So that when you are doing your restoration, what you have is an exact replica of the server that was backed up, right? So depending on what is running on, of course, in this, I can understand Outlook depending on the kind of Outlook configuration, but webmail might not be it, because of course the webmail server does not sit on your primary, even the Outlook, sorry, doesn't sit on your primary server. So that's, you might just be able to, have your Windows, your operating system and all the rest, and then install your Outlook, and then download your emails, right? Depending if you have a cloud, if you have an on-prem server in the situation of Outlook, hopefully that server was not affected by whatever happened. So you also can download your emails from that on-prem server. So, but specifically with regards to backing up emails, right? We have our backup solution can actually also back up Office 365 applications as well as Google Workspace applications. So we're talking email, the entire Google Workspace applications, really, right? So if the webmail, right, or the email solution that you're using is either Outlook or the Google mail, that's the Gmail, yes, we can back it up for you.
Thank you, Irene. Thanks for that explanation. There's another one here from Edafe. It says, how are IP addresses managed for failover process, or how is business continuity set up such that failover is seamless without need to change IP address?
Exactly. So that's also one of the key things about our disaster recovery solution, such that at the time of setting the recovery server, I'll show you all of that during the what's it called, the technical demo. So at the time of setting up the recovery server, what happens is that the IP address of the recovery server is the same IP address of the primary server, right? So that's it's configured that way. So the recovery server is configured with the same specification as the primary server. So we're talking about the CPU, the RAM, the IP addressing, right? All of it, the same configuration. So like I said, you have an exact replica of what you have in your production environment, right? And once that server is created, right, that virtual machine is created, in order to avoid IP conflict, that machine is put on standby. It is not turned on until the time you need to turn it on for disaster recovery purposes. Subsequently, we know that from time to time, people want to test their disaster recovery infrastructure to ensure that it is working fine and all. So we also have space or support or capability for an extra IP address that is used in this scenario for disaster recovery. So if you need to test your disaster recovery and all the rest, it's that particular IP address that is used. So when setting up your virtual machine that is used for disaster recovery, you actually have two IP addresses. You have the primary or the production IP address, and then you have the test IP address.
All right. Thank you for that answer. Okay, so we have our next question coming from Sulaiman Moshood. So good presentation, and thank you for the opportunity to partake in the training. Thank you, Sulaiman, for that commendation. Is this application available for server only? That's the question from Sulaiman.
Yes, currently at this point, we only support servers for disaster recovery purposes.
Okay, noted. Okay, so for, the next question from Franklin, that's Frank Ebuzome. Is the DRO state secondary server up? Is the DRO state up to date with the date of on the primary server? So I think it's trying to saying that what he's trying to ask is that is the secondary server up to date with the primary server?
Okay, continue.
Right. Okay, if when you restore to the clean restore point, aren't you going to lose any data? So he's trying to compare the previous data and the primary and the secondary data after restoration.
Yeah, I agree with you. I understand what you're saying. So typically all of this is dependent on what has been scheduled by the administrator, right? So what I mean by this is this, right? For setting up disaster recovery, there are two major steps. Step number one is backup. We have to take backup of the primary server. So when you're setting up the backup of the primary server, you have to set a schedule for backup. So you can say, oh, I want you to take backup every 12 hours or every 24 hours or every 6 hours, depending on the criticality of the workload that you're looking to protect. I've seen customers that do every 1 hour because they are not available, they don't want to lose it. At least they know that even if they are going to lose, they're only going to lose one hour worth of data. You understand? So that is typically dependent on how you schedule your backup. Because at the end of the day, when we are doing disaster recovery, what happens in the process of disaster recovery is that the system goes to the repository of all your backup folders, right, and picks the most current one. Also that is also dependent. Some people would prefer to restore way beyond, as far back as they like. Some people want the most current one. So the most current one, the most current backup folder that is available in the cloud is what is then used to restore your system. So if your schedule was every 1 hour, that means that the most latest backup folder you have would be the backup folder that was created 1 hour ago when the last backup happened. So that's the only one that will be available for the system to use in disaster recovery purpose. So at the end of the day, as an organization, you now have to look and say, okay, how critical is what is the resources or the data on this server that we want to put disaster recovery on? How much time are we willing to lose, and then put all of that into consideration when setting up your disaster recovery infrastructure.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, we have a couple of other questions here from Victor, Daniel, and Olariwaju. We are going to attend to these questions, but not to waste our time, we're going to dive into the next session. So Irene will be taking us on the technical demo on DR, and so with that, we can also use the chat box to up your questions. So we're going to tweet it at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. Irene, over to you.
Okay, hold on. One minute. Let me share my screen. Simon, please, you have to stop sharing so I can share. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's perfect. All right, so this is what the customer's console looks like, right? When you sign up to Acronis, right? So with regards to disaster recovery, one of the first things you want to do, like I mentioned, the first step really is to provision your backup, plan, right? Now I'm going to use an existing to show you what that can look like. So I'm going to use this infrastructure. Right, or better still, let me just show you afresh. So we do that using what we refer to as the protection plan. So the protection plan is basically how we configure our settings, typically with regards to Acronis solutions, right? As you can see, one of the first things that you get to configure from a protection plan or your protection plan is your backup. So from a backup perspective, there are so many things that you can provision or set. But with regards to disaster recovery, when configuring your backup, you must put in mind that first and foremost, we want to take a backup of the entire machine, right? So your backup must be set to take to back up the entire machine, right? Secondly, and there's a reason for this, is because when we take a backup of the entire machine, we're doing an image backup, right? So what that means is that we're taking a backup of the entire system, including everything that makes up the system. So we're talking about the boot information, we're talking about the operating system information, the IP addressing, and all the rest, everything that has to do with the system. This actually allows us to then produce a replica of your production server in our cloud. So when we we have to set it to entire machine backup. Secondly, where do we back up to? We back up to cloud storage, right? This is also backing up to cloud storage helps to ensure minimum RTO as possible, right? Because when you're let me say, for example, right, your backup is done maybe to a NAS storage within your organization or within the end user's data center and all, right? And a disaster happens. Two things can happen. Number one, that storage device that is local to that customer might actually be affected. Say in the situation, it could be any situation, it could be natural disaster, attack, cyber attack, or even human error. it could be affected, right? Secondly, even if it's not affected, right? If you want to do disaster recovery and you're saying, okay, the backup file folder, or the backup file I want to use for disaster recovery is going to sit in my local environment. I just need the virtual machine, right, sitting in Acronis cloud too. What happens in that situation is that transmission of information, because what it means is that the system has to come down to your own environment, pick up that folder, move it back up to our own cloud environment before loading it onto the virtual machine. So you have to worry about internet. If you have an internet outage, that means that will not even work. If you have power outage, that means that will not work, right? So the idea is to have it in our cloud storage, because it means that all the resources, all the items we need to run a successful disaster recovery is seated in our environment, and it's easy for us to just go pick up that file, load it into the virtual machine, and then start up the recovery server for you, right? So that is the recommendation. Now, schedule, right? Like I said, this is dependent on the end user, right? The end user can choose to say, okay, I want to do my backup monthly, I want to do it weekly, I want to do it daily, I want to do it hourly, right? And one thing to put into consideration when setting this up is to understand the criticality of the item that you run on that server, and to know, okay, this is how much downtime I can afford, right? So like I said, I've seen people that do every 1 hour, I've seen people that do daily, right? Because they feel that, okay, if I lose 24 hours of data, I'm still fine, you know, I can still I can still work effectively. It's not a lot of loss for me. For some people, no, I can't do 1 hour is even too much. You get. So all of this is at the discretion of the IT admin or of the organization, right? Putting into consideration the criticality of what they are looking at. Also, retention period. How long do we want to keep this folder, these files for, right? So we also have that. You can also set that here. If you want to keep it for as long as 6 months, you want to keep it for, you know, depending on how long you want to keep it. We have an unlimited period of to keep. We don't have a limit as to how long you can keep it for. So if you want to keep it for 5 years, for 10 years, yes, we are able to keep it for that long for you. So encryption basically speaks to an additional layer of security on your backup folders, and security specifically with regards to access to those folders, right? We don't want a situation where maybe something happens by hook or crook, you know, somebody is able to have access to your backup folder, and then the person is able to, you know, extract it and get information from it. So what happens in this situation? This is, as you can see, there's a switch beside it. So this also too is not by default, it's not turned on by default. You have to decide, okay, do I want it or do I not want it, right? So, but what happens is this: if you have it turned on, it means that when we're taking backup of that server, right, we actually encrypt the files. And as you can see, as I try to turn it on, it actually requests that I have to input a password. So upon turning on the encryption, you have to actually set an encryption password. And it's only with this encryption password that you can have access to the data sitting in that backup folder. So what that means is that if you have encryption turned on for this particular backup, right, when you want to do disaster recovery, you have to input this password, right, before you can do disaster recovery. Anything, if you want to do anything with the file, if you want to do restoration, if you want to do just ordinary recovery, not disaster recovery, you know, I just want to recover to maybe a bare metal or to another VM somewhere, right? As long as that folder is being encrypted, you have to input the password for that folder, right? So that's that basically just sums up with regards to the backup, right, of for disaster recovery. Now, step 2 would be to come here and turn on the disaster recovery solution. And then when you turn it on, 2 things that you can do from here is, first and foremost, is to set the recovery server. I'll show you how that is done because I've not applied this to what's the word, a server yet. So, and then also to set the connectivity, we'll run through that. So you turn on the disaster recovery, then step 3 would then be to create the recovery server. Now, creating the recovery server is pretty much simple. Recently, the good thing is before you had to do it manually, right? You have to input it one after the other. But the good thing about it is, separate about our solution now is that creating the recovery server is now done automatically. So what do I mean by this? Say, for example, this server, right, that I have already added to my infrastructure here, right? I want to do disaster recovery for this. Once I turn on the disaster recovery part of it, immediately the recovery server is created, and it is created based on the specification. So the system actually populates the specification of the server and automatically creates the recovery server, right? So when you click on this, let me show you what the kind of settings that are done with the recovery server. Good. So as you can see, the recovery server has the same name as the primary server, right? Currently, the status is fine. It's currently on standby, and it would remain on standby for as long, for let me say forever. Created, and this is based on the CPU and RAM specification of this server. So the system actually, does its check. Is able to recognize and identify the CPU, the specification, the CPU and RAM on that server, and then uses that information to create the recovery server. IP address, this IP address is the same IP address as the primary IP server. And as you can see, like I mentioned earlier, there's also the test IP address, right? Which is a different IP address from the primary IP address, right? That is also used, created for the same server. So each server, you have 2 IP addresses. I don't know why internet service is disabled here, but you can actually enable it if you want. You just edit it and enable it. If you want a public IP address, yes, you can also request, although this usually comes at an extra cost. But if you have an infrastructure, or if you would prefer that your recovery server should be accessible via the internet and you want a public IP address, we can also provide that for you, right? So RPO, we talked about RPO. You can actually set your RPO, right? Let me look at it from here. Let me edit it so that you can see how that is done, because this is just a summary of the good. So this is the editable part, right? So as you can see, you can even schedule how often you want to do an automated test failover. So if you're the kind of person that says, oh, I want to be able to test my disaster recovery failover every month, right? You can actually schedule it, and automatically that is done for you, right? So we talked about IP addressing, right? If you want to use an IP address, you just come here and enable it. And an IP address, a public IP address would be assigned to you, right? You can also set your RPO threshold, right? So your RPO threshold is, like I mentioned earlier, is dependent on the backup schedule that you have, right? Now, this guy has set his threshold for 15 minutes, right? If his backup schedule is not for 15 minutes, even though he can set it for this, the earliest he can get would be the latest backup file from his backup schedule, right? So once you have this, if you have any firewall rules that you would also like to add, right, you would also set it here. You can also allow or deny certain what's it called? Ports, certain application ports and all the rest, just to ensure that people cannot access your server through certain means, right? So once you do that, then you're good to go. You just save, and automatically the recovery server is created for you, right? So let me show you where that recovery server is then created. So as you can see, under the disaster recovery tabs, if you click on it, you have the servers, and then you have the list of all the recovery servers that you have. So if you have 3 servers, 4 servers, 10 servers, and you have them on what's it called, on disaster recovery, you actually see all the servers listed here. So this is the one we actually use. Now, in a situation of disaster recovery, okay, before I come to failover, right? Another thing you also have to consider is your connectivity. How do you connect your production site to your cloud site, right? In Acronis, we offer 3 different types of connectivity. We offer cloud only. That's where you do it over the internet. That is not secure and is usually not recommended because it's not secure. Secondly, the other type of connectivity we offer is site-to-site VPN, right? So with site-to-site VPN, what happens is that we're able to install a VPN application, right, within your environment, and that VPN application is then used to create a tunnel, a secure tunnel from your production site to our cloud site, ensuring that whatever communication is happening between your production site and our cloud site, most especially in situation of failover and then even failback, right? Failback after you have gotten a new infrastructure or a new server, and you need to restore back to your primary location, right? You need to restore back from the cloud, right? So all of that helps to provide that connectivity. Then the third scenario would be multi-site IPsec VPN. Now, multi-site IPsec VPN is usually used in situations where, say for example, your client has several branches, right, and has critical workload in all of these branches, right? So what happens in this situation is that we create a multi-site IPsec VPN connectivity between the cloud site and all these different branches, right? Either using the customer's what's the word? Firewalls, right? That are sitting on this in these different branches, right? So we use them as kind of like VPN aggregators, to create that VPN tunnel between the local site and the cloud site. So all of those are the 3 type of connectivities: cloud only, site-to-site VPN, and multi-site VPN that we actually use for customers. Used to create connectivity between the local site and the cloud site, right? So as you can see, this is actually a site-to-site VPN connectivity, right? This is the local site, right? And then it's connected to the cloud site. The tunnel is still coming up, so it might take a while, so we'll look at that later. Now, let's look at failovers. So how do you do a failover? You come to the office one day, your physical server has fried, right? And you're worried, oh, how do I make sure that people get to work while I still try to get a new server? All you need to do is come to the disaster recovery section of your console and then locate the particular server that you like to fail over. So once you click on it, right, then you go ahead to click on failover, right? Now, remember I talked about recovery points, right? So when you're failing over, first and foremost, you have to specify, am I doing a test failover or am I doing a protection failover? So this is where you specify. The difference between both is just the IP addressing. The test failover takes into consideration that the primary server is still up and running, right? It's just turning on the secondary server for test purposes. The protection failover uses the same IP address as the primary server with the understanding or with the idea that the primary server is shut down. So in that situation, even when users, not necessarily for servers that users have to access from time to time. So even when users are trying to reach that IP address, they are automatically routed to this production server to this recovery server in the cloud, right? So once you specify which of the failovers you want to do, then the next step would be to come and say, okay, where do I want to failover from? At what recovery point I want to failover from? Now, depending on the recovery points threshold that you have set as an organization, right? The system will actually give you all the backup folders that match that threshold. So as you can see, we have all the backup folders. I think this was set for 15 minutes or so. So we have all the backup folders that match it. And then you can then come and say, okay, Remember, this server was set for 15 minutes, right? But in the real sense, even from the files, you can see that I think backup is being done on a weekly basis. So the last backup was July 17, the one before this was 10. So it's done every 7 days, right? So that's the earliest, right? Today is 18. So automatically this customer would already lose one day of data. Now, if he waits till next week, because his backup schedule is set for 1 week, right? He will still only be able to recover up to this point where we have a backup folder for him. So you just select which one, what point you want to recover from, and then you click on start, right? So once you click on start, typically the system picks up the backup folder or the backup file that you want to backup from, and then loads it to the virtual machine, and then create all of that for you to then backup. You can see the activities happening here. Let me see. Come on. So it's currently running the test failover. So while this is running, we'll come back to this, and then you can it will tell you how much time it actually took for this to come back up. I want to talk about runbooks. Now, so runbooks actually allow you to automate this failover process, right? As you can see, even from my own lab environment, I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have about 12 servers. So what that means is that imagine that all these 12 servers were sitting in a data center, right? And then we come to the office one day and earthquake in the data center, right? So what it means is that I have to come here and start failing over each of the servers one after the other. But with the runbooks, what I can do with the runbooks is to automate that process, right? And then number one, makes it easier and faster for my failover process to come up earlier, and then also minimizes human error, because in the process of maybe failing over, turning it on one after the other, one after the other, I could make an error. I could, mistakenly click on something I'm not supposed to click on. So that's where the runbooks happen. So what runbooks do is that they actually allow you to create step-by-step guide. Give the system step-by-step instruction on how to handle the failover process. So if you want to do a runbook, it's just very simple. You come here, create a new runbook, and then you click on add step. Now, what are you doing with step 1? What action do you want to do? Okay, say, okay, I want a failover server, right? It gives you different options, right? Now you have to specify which server do I want to failover first. Which server do I want to failover first? I can say, okay, failover this guy first, right? Now, not only does it turn on the failover automatically, it will also do a completion check, right? And says, okay, once the server is is turned on, it has to check. You can then say, okay, I want you to ping this IP address to confirm that the server is actually turned on, or if there's a specific application that is running on that server, you can say, okay, I need you to connect to this application port, right? Once that connection goes through, then that's the way to also confirm that the server is up and running. So once it has done the completion check, it then goes on to step 2, right? You can then go ahead to add another server, right? On and on and on for as long as you want. So you create all of that, create that step-by-step instruction, algorithm telling the system, okay, this is how I want you to fail over. Now, where is this applicable? Number one, in situations where well, like I mentioned, you have so many servers, and you're worried about having to start turning each one on one after the other. Then secondly, in situations where you have servers that are dependent on each other. So say, for example, you have a database server, and you have like a finance server or an accounting server that is dependent on that database server, right? So what that means is that when you're turning on your servers, you must turn on your database server first, right? Before you turn on the other server that is dependent on it, right? So this is where that is actually also applicable. Now, how this actually helps is, you see this where it says action, failover server. And then it has, but it's. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I've just been talking since. Let me ask if they can hear me. Okay, so when you have the failover server, right, and then it says continue if already done, right? So what that means is that for this server one, once it is done, it automatically moves to server 2. Now, look, as you can see, we also have the option of continue if failed. Now, there will be situations where the servers are not dependent on each other, right? And even if server 1 doesn't come on, you can, sorry, you can ask the system to just ignore and go ahead to turn on server 2. So basically, this helps to just automate that process such that, sorry, so that when you finish creating the runbook, all you have to do is just save. I'm not going to save this now because, and then when you save it, you have the runbook listed here. So in a situation where you then need to quickly turn on this thing, you just need to come here, look at the list of runbooks, and look for the runbook that you like to run, and then turn it, just go ahead and click execute. I don't know why this is taking long to come up. I would really love to show you that. So once you click execute, automatically the system begins to step by step follow the instruction that you have set within the runbooks. So that is just a quick technical overview and demonstration of how the disaster recovery solution works, right? So any questions? I think we've really gone far in our time. So
the final questions.
Yeah, any questions?
Okay. We have some leftover questions that we've not treated, and that's from
Stop sharing. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so most of our clients, this is from Chukuma Daniel, most of our clients' enterprise workload are physical Linux or Unix servers. Can you explain again the type of environment they can cover?
Can you explain again the type of environment they can cover?
Most of the.
Or should I run it over again?
I'm not sure what that question is about.
It says most of their client enterprise workloads are physical Linux servers. So he's wondering whether we can apply the cyber disaster recovery on their Linux servers. Can we replicate it on the cloud virtual machines?
I need to confirm, but right now, or let me not say I need to confirm. So disaster recovery currently works on, well, it's in the roadmap to support Linux, but currently we support Windows. But I need to confirm because I know it's been in the roadmap for a while now. So I need to check if that is now available, right? So I can check that and see if we now support Linux. But I know that before now, we just used to support Windows machines.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Our next question is from Olayewaju Aniju. For clients with multiple branches, from the presentation you mentioned IP multi-site, does it come with extra cost for branches or
no, it doesn't.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't come as an extra cost.
Want to confirm.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. So our next question is from Frank, saying, can Acronis DRO be integrated with endpoint monitoring solution if I need a ADR solution only from Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud Suite? So he's talking about integrating Acronis DR solution with endpoint monitoring solution.
Okay.
With his own.
No, okay, so it now depends on which endpoint monitoring solution. Now, for example, the Acronis EDR, we have our endpoint detection and response solution. It's also integrated with our disaster recovery. So if you're subscribed to our EDR solution, part of the remediation process, right, or tasks or activities with EDR is disaster recovery, right? So EDR can actually links up with disaster recovery. So if you're running disaster recovery on the system, yes, it can help to remediate that.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Okay, so just to, sorry, Henry,
right,
just quickly check. So I've actually, let me share my screen so that for people that, I just checked again and I see that we now currently support Linux and different flavors of Linux. Hold on, as you can see. So from my screen, from an operating system perspective, with regards to disaster recovery, CentOS, Debian, Red Hat, Ubuntu, Oracle Linux, right? These are all the variants or flavors of Linux that we currently support from 6.6 upward. So I think like CentOS is on 9.0. So for most people, this will typically cover it. So for the guy that talked about his customers having Linux, yes, but Unix, we currently support Linux.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, so I have this question from okay, actually the name is not here. Is it possible to back up mail on webmail or an Outlook configuration?
I thought we've answered that question.
Oh, you've done that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we've answered it from anonymous attendee.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I think that's all I have here. That's all I have here. Let me get through the chat, if there's any other question. No? None for now.
There's a question. I see a question here. It's not complete, but I'll look at. It says from Victor, it says, will this solution remediate when there is an attack in order to prevent further occurrence and downtime? Because if it does not remediate, we'll keep having attacks every recovery time. Okay, when you say remediate, remediation is a response. Are you saying protection? Now, if you're saying protection, you have to look at having a security solution. Like I said earlier, it's not a security solution, right? It just helps back up. It's like, how will I explain it? For example, I think a typical example will be your WhatsApp, right? As we know, every day, 2 a.m., WhatsApp does back up, right? So that's basically what is happening, right? So what we are doing is, in the scenario of WhatsApp, at 2 a.m. every day, we take your backup, right? So if your phone crashes, all you need to do is go to slots, get a new phone, reinstall your WhatsApp, and then restore your backup folders. So you don't lose any chats, you don't lose any pictures or videos and all the rest that was sent to you when you were using your former phone to access WhatsApp, right? But we now take it a step further. We are now saying, okay, your phone crashes, or you wake up one morning, your phone is not working, or it falls into water or something, right? Before you think about, maybe your house is in Badagry and you're worried about, oh, how do I get to slot in Computer Village Keja? While you're thinking about all of that, we would then also give you a phone that is the same specification as the phone that you were using before, already loaded with your WhatsApp, with your Google Android operating system, or if it's an iPhone with your iOS, typically the same kind of phone, the same specification, an exact replica of the phone that you were using before, and we'll bring it to you for you to use. So saves you the time of having to come down to Lagos. If you have maybe business conversations or whatever that you were doing with your phone, you don't have to lose all of that, conversations, or even lose any financial implication on and all that. So that typically is what disaster recovery does. It is not a security solution.
It just helps to ensure business continuity in the event of a disaster to your primary infrastructure. Now, if you need security, yes, we also have security solution, which is the Acronis Advanced Security Solution. And it provides anti-malware, antivirus, anti-ransomware protection, right? 0-day protection, making sure your system is fully protected, right? In addition to that, we also have the endpoint detection and response, which works in collaboration with our security solution, such that if there is a security incident, the solution is able to not just detect, but also respond. So the typical security system a security solution would prevent, right? But the endpoint security solution detects, ensures that the prevention happens. And if it's a situation, for example, a ransomware attack, where just by detecting, or it cannot be prevented, right? Let me put it that way. The solution then does remediation. And one of the remediation process is disaster recovery, which means that the solution is able to say, okay, you have had a ransomware attack, but don't worry, I can see that you have disaster recovery enabled for this system. And so because you have disaster recovery enabled, I have your backup in my cloud, right? That backup has to already be sitting there. So it is able to help you restore or rather, let me put it this way, continue your disaster recovery process. Or if it's just backup, it then tells you, okay, you have to restore your infrastructure from this backup folder, right? But like I said, disaster recovery is not a security solution. I hope that's clear for the person that asked that question. Okay, you said
yes, it says it got it. Okay, so I think in order for us not to take much time, we're going to tweet the last question, which is coming from Kunle Omowo. The question goes, how does this solution address vulnerability and patch management? So right.
Like I said, disaster recovery is not security. So vulnerability scanning or vulnerability assessment solution sits under our security portfolio, right? So what that means is that just the way that you have schedule for your backup, you can actually also create a schedule for your vulnerability assessment. So what it means is that you tell the system at 5 o'clock every day or 6 o'clock every day or every week, I need you to scan my devices, scan my infrastructure, my servers, my laptops. Vulnerability assessment actually supports just beyond servers, right? It also supports your endpoint devices, that's your laptops and all. I need you to scan them and ensure that there are no vulnerabilities in my device. So vulnerabilities from an operating system perspective, vulnerabilities from an application perspective. So basically the operating systems and the applications that I'm running on my devices do not have any vulnerability, right? Now, so the system does that scan and then gives you a report and says, okay, I've scanned your system and based on industry standard, this and this and this are the vulnerabilities that I have identified in your system that hackers could take advantage of to attack your system, right? And then it now goes a step further and say, okay, not only have I identified the vulnerabilities, I've also checked and found out that these vulnerabilities have patches available that you can use to deal with these vulnerabilities, to basically resolve them, right? And then it takes you to the patch management section of our solution. So the patch management section sits under our advanced management solution. It doesn't sit under security. It doesn't sit under disaster recovery, right? So when you're talking vulnerability assessment and patch management, they sit under different portfolios, right? And at the same time, they're not related to disaster recovery. Mr. Kunle, is that clear?
Yeah, I guess that's clear. Okay, so I think that's the last question we have for this webinar. We would want to move forward by calling it a day. But before then, we want to appreciate every one of us that have joined this webinar session. We want to thank the MSP, potential MSP, and the existing MSP, also clients who are the end users that are meant to use the solution. We want to assure you that the recording of this session will be shared to every attendees and register for this webinar. So thank you very much for taking time out to join this webinar. So before we proceed to end this webinar, I would like Taiwo to make the last comment before we go ahead and also next to Irene.
Yeah, thank you everyone for taking time out to attend our webinar on the Acronis Advanced Disaster Recovery. And I'm sure it has been quite insightful for everyone, going through the presentation, the advantage of having a backup and extending that backup to a disaster recovery to be able to ensure continuity of your business operations when a disaster occurs. And I'm sure you also enjoyed the demo session where Irene was able to bring to life all the technical presentations I did, and you were able to physically see how it works and to be able to understand that the Acronis disaster recovery solution is a very easy and easily accessible, user-friendly solution. Within a click, you're done with your backup. Within a click, you're done with your disaster recovery. It's very cost-effective, and it gives you a lot of opportunity to do, even just outside of disaster recovery. You can do your endpoint detection, protection, you can do your email security, you can do your patch management, like she said earlier. There's so much more Acronis Cyber Protect solutions has to offer. We would reach out to you further to be able to know who will be interested in the solution and how we can get the solution delivered to your various organizations, or those who will be interested in partnering with us as well, to be able to partner with us and provide the solutions to their end customers as well. So just say a big thank you to everyone who has taken time out to attend this webinar. We really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
All right, that's noted. Irene, one last statement from you.
Nothing much. Just want to say thank you for joining us on this call. We look forward to doing business with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we want to call it a day. Thank you everyone for joining. Please reach out to us if you need a further engagement on any of the solution. Could be Acronis Cyber Protect or DL, as the case may be. We're glad to tweet all your requests. Thank you very much. Do have a lovely day ahead. From this side, we said bye-bye.